Did you hear all that? You ready to go love your enemies now? When's the last time you and I prayed for someone we didn't like? You know, that person that politician, I'm not going to name names because I don't know what party you're in, but you know what I'm saying, that person? When's the last time you and I prayed for them from the heart? Not like the apostles, Father, send fire down upon them. Well, send the fire of your love, that's a different fire. Jesus is dropping a major bombshell on his followers today. We have to understand, when they first heard this, they're thinking, is he crazy? Love my enemies? The people who've treated us, remember when he's saying this, they're under Roman occupation. They have been brutalized. They had a whole history of just being somebody's doormat, and he's saying, love your enemies. But we have to understand what it means to love. We have to define terms. He didn't say, like your enemies. I don't have to like you. I don't have to like what you did to me. And this is easy to say, maybe to some of those who have not been mistreated so badly. How do you preach this to somebody who's lost somebody, was murdered, somebody that's been brutalized, sexually abused, physically abused growing up? How are those people to do this? It's only by the grace of God. This love Jesus speaks of, it's impossible for you and I to love as he calls us love. It's a supernatural grace. Only God within me can love this way. It's an unconditional love. It says today that his love is for the good and the wicked both. God's love is an unconditional love. God is love, and we were made in his image and likeness. By baptism, you and I have been made a new creation. St. Paul says, it is no longer I that lives, but Christ in me. Mark died. Father Mark died 2,020 years ago on that cross. Did you know that? Every human being that ever lived died when he died, because he took all humanity onto himself. That part of you call Betty or Susan or John, or that part of you is dead. It's been buried. And there's a new creation with you, and that new man within you is Jesus Christ. You are Christ on earth by virtue of your baptism. What God is by nature, you are by grace. That's the teaching of the Catholic faith. So if we understand who we really are, today's gospel should not come as a shock, because Jesus is really saying, be true to who you are. You are Christ. And Jesus never calls us to do anything that he himself didn't do. He loved his enemies. Every time you and I sin, we make ourselves his enemy. Yet he prays for us, doesn't he? He forgives us when we seek forgiveness. Look what he did for the cross when we put him up there. I murdered him. I was a part of that. I was part of that. And what does he say to me and to you? He says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They don't realize that in nailing me to the cross, they're nailing themselves to the cross, because I died with him. You see, that's why sin is so destructive. It's self-destructive. That's why Jesus later on, he says, don't judge and you won't be judged. Because you see, when I judge you, I judge another person, I'm judging myself. Because you and I are one body. Usually what I don't like in another person, if I really take time and reflect on and why I don't like you, is a lot of times what I don't like in you is because I see it in myself and I don't like it neither. That's why Jesus says, don't judge and you won't be judged. What you measure out will be given back to you. In other words, you and I are going to reap what we sow. I heard this guy on radio several years ago. He was full of rage, and he just lived a life of, he was a violent man, and he just beat the tar out of people. Almost killed a few people. He beat them so severely. He died in a car accident. And he said, I went to this dark place, and all it was people beating up on me, just kicking me in the face and kicking my teeth in. And I thought, where? Now, what is going on? And he came back to life. God had brought him back to life. And he looked back and realized everything I did to other people was coming back on me now. Now, I wanted to call into that radio station and say, that's what we call purgatory. So all the good that you do in this world will come back to you. See, think of it like putting a deposit into the bank treasury. There's a divine treasury. All the good, all your choices go into that treasure. And so it awaits you in the next life. That's why Jesus is saying, be true to who you are. Be Christ. Love your enemies. Pray for those who mistreat you. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Boy, that's hard, isn't it? But if we understand what love is not a feeling. Love is an act of the will. This love that Jesus speaks of, now that's a type of love, but it's certainly not the love. He's talking about agape love. The heart of the very essence of agape love is that right there. It's sacrificial. There's a part of me that has to die to be able to love you and forgive you for what you did to me. I mean, people come to me sometimes, and the stories they share with me about what was done to them as kids with sexual abuse and physical abuse, and you're telling me, Father Mark, I gotta forgive them for that? Are you crazy? No, I'm just telling you what he said, that's all. And why does he say this? Because he knows, Jesus knows, if you hang on to that bitterness and hatred in your heart, you're going to become the very thing you hate. This one woman I talked to one day, her father was a Satanist. He did horrible things to her as a kid. And she couldn't forgive. She hated him so much. And I told her, I said, look, you should, what you feel is real. You should feel that. I wanted to validate her in that. What was done to you, you should hate. But you're getting into hating the person. See, it's okay to hate the sinful act, right? You've heard of the saying, love the sinner, hate the sin. That's hard to do, isn't it? But we have to separate those two. It's okay to say, I hate what you did to me. But when she started hating him, and Jesus is calling her to love him for what he did to her? No. Yeah. And she finally got the grace. About 2 weeks later, I told her, write a letter to him. First of all, tell him how you feel. Tell him how you feel toward him. Get all that out. And then at the end of that letter, I want you to forgive him. She walked out of the office and said, I can't do it. 2 weeks later, she came back to me just beaming from ear to ear. She has fibromyalgia all through her body, and she hasn't slept most of her life because the things that were done to her, because she felt she had to keep her eyes open. She said, I sleep like a baby. All the fibromyalgia, all the pain that was in my body, as soon as I forgave my dad, it just went, because that's what sin is. Sin is destructive. Look what sin does. Look at that. That's what sin does. It kills. It stabs. It wounds. It pierces. It rips. It's destructive. And that's why Jesus puts this out here for us. It's a challenge to all of us, but he wants us to be Jesus, to be Christ to those into the world. He says, what good is it? You do it to the people you like and they like you. He says, big deal. I'm paraphrasing it. He's basically saying, big deal. Where's the sacrifice in that? Loving people who love you. What about the people you don't love and people who have hurt you? You see, when we choose to love as Jesus loved and we forgive those who mistreat us, we receive healing. She was healed that day. I saw another man full of arthritis all through his body, full of pain, all buckled over, full of hatred. towards his ex-wife. And he finally said, I can't live like this anymore. I'm miserable. What did I need to do? You got to forgive her. And he finally did it. It was an act of the will. He didn't feel like it. He chose to do it. And he, right there on the spot, was completely healed. Right in front of my eyes. Whoosh, gone. And he looked about 30 years younger. Completely transformed him. So this is why Jesus calls us to love, not to make it hard on us, but he wants us to have the best. He sees what sin does when we hang on to it. It destroys us, and it destroys the person you're hating. When's the last time you prayed for somebody you don't like? Think of that politician you judge on TV and you say horrible things about. Jesus says, what you do to the least of your brothers and sisters, you do to me. So if you want to know how much you love God, if you ever want to know the litmus test, you ever wonder, hey, God, where do I kind of stand in relationship to you? Am I doing okay down here? Am I loving you like I'm supposed to love you? All you got to do is say, okay, who's the person I least like? Okay, that's how much I love God. Pretty eye-opening, isn't it? I know your brains are going, okay. When's the last time you prayed for that politician? When's the last time I prayed for the person who I just don't like at work? Or that person who hurts me at home, who says hateful things to me? People have hurt me and said hurtful things. Ask God for the grace to pray for them. It's hard not to love somebody when you're praying for them. And as you pray for them, as you choose, it's a choice, as you choose to love them and to forgive them and to be Jesus to them, I promise you, you're going to experience healing in your bodies and in your minds. And you're going to be liberated from everything that is destroying your peace. Please stand.